Hey everybody, it is Tuesday, 9/15, October 1st. I can't believe it's already October. We've had a lot of things happen in class, and so I wanted to send around another video update and just touch base with you all before we dive into our second case study where we'll be exploring tobacco in Oceania. So I want to recap about the weight of obesity. So I've been reading through your case study 1 assignments, and those that I've read so far have been wonderful. So you'll see your grades and some suggestions and some comments posted on D2L soon. But I'm very pleased that you all are definitely learning how complex a lot of these community health interventions can be. So from reading about nutrition in Zela, we've learned a lot of things. But a few things that I want to point out. So the first one is the complexity of these community health issues when you're trying to do interventions on the ground. It's something that seems really simple, like, nutrient density, calories in, calories out can really become quite a larger issue. And I realize that a lot of you have, really worked with ethnography well and have been doing great on the discussions, and that's really coming out in your case study 1 PowerPoints. So the complexity of it is something that I hope you all will, continue to think about as we move through the semester. A lot of you talked about referencing historical context, and that certainly seems, very important when we're talking about nutrition and Zela and history of Civil War, history of, much of the population being very malnourished, and so that's really led to this cultural idea and this value system surrounding quite a difference, quite a dichotomy between the beauty of fatness on one side, but also folks, not wanting to be obese and that leading to, chronic disease and a lot of other health issues. So how do you, as a practitioner, kind of very tactfully navigate between those two pieces? And a lot of you explored that really well in your presentations to the mock Montana doctors going on their medical mission. So again, the complexity of it is really important. The historical context, these local, culturally nuanced values. In the case of Zela, it was this idea between fatness and obesity. Also that a lot of, let's say, Western or biomedical metrics aren't as universally applicable as we might think. So many of you talked about measurement and weight, weight, the act of weighing somebody, and BMI and those types of things, and how there would be a lot of cultural pushback with that. And a lot of you gave great examples. So, that's just another thing to consider as we're learning, most of us primarily in, the Western part of the world, that a lot of these indicators, these metrics might not translate as well as, we think they might. And what are some alternative ways that we can, in this case, provide nutritional information and education that's more rooted in the cultures that we're working in. So a few things to mention. So far, and I haven't been through everybody's case study 1 PowerPoint yet, but nobody mentioned learning from the group in Zela, learning from Guatemalans. And I think that bilateral exchange of ideas is really, really important. We certainly do not know all the answers. And I think that if that is at the forefront of your mind, if you're really thinking about that, it will go a long way. I might actually send around an article and just for extra reading, but if you go back, 40, 50 years when many eating disorders were first being diagnosed, so eating disorders like bulimia, anorexia, those originated in Western countries. And really the idea there was, we live in a capitalistic society. We are often, measuring ourselves in this kind of control and release fashion. So, for example, we're going to work out like crazy and log a bunch of miles on our Fitbit And then since we do that, we're going to give ourselves a reward and sit on the couch and eat chips and, binge watch Netflix and binge eat. And this whole idea, really isn't seen that much in other cultures, that more value, let's say the societal importance of food and eating, the familial importance and the community impact of food. And so I don't want us to kind of continue any further in the class without really thinking about, what, when we're working with folks from other cultures, what can we bring to the table and what can we learn? I certainly think that we do a lot of nutritional black boxing ourselves. We oversimplify, good nutrition and what that means, and we are certainly getting better. But again, when you read this next book, think about, okay, what can we learn as well? Because learning is certainly a two-way street. So that's the first thing I want us to keep in mind. And the second thing, hold on, let's have a coffee, is being careful with overgeneralizing. So, and some of you mentioned this very poignantly in your presentations, but I think that's something that can't be stated enough. We never want to say this group, suffers from malnutrition, or this group thinks this way. Just think about how that would sound coming back to you if somebody just lumped you with, all Americans. So think about that moving forward. Be really careful about overgeneralizing and also oversimplifying things. And I think that point really got driven home. A lot of you were talking about just realizing how complex a nutritional intervention can be. So the third thing I want to bring up, and then I'll leave it because I don't want to kind of bombard you with too many things, but that one does not have to travel all the way to Zela to implement some of the lessons that we learned from Emily Yates Storr's ethnography. We live in a country where we're so culturally diverse, linguistically diverse. Many of us come from different historical backgrounds. And so think about, as you're reading these ethnographies, how you can apply this information, these lessons learned. And a lot of you had lessons learned slides in your case study 1 assignments, so that was great. But think about how you could apply this working right here in Bozeman, or working, as a health practitioner, community health worker, even here in the US. So I challenge you to think about that as we move forward with the semester. All right, so in terms of moving forward, one quick thing to mention is that some of you, and it hasn't been the same group, every time, but if you miss an assignment, let me know. I am certainly, need to deduct points for it being late, but some points are better than no points. So if you still want to submit something kind of moving backwards into the semester, if you missed a discussion, or if you missed your global health part 1, or even the case study 1 assignment, please reach out to me and we can work something out. Again, you will have points deducted, as it's not fair to those who did submit it on time, but I'd rather have you complete the assignment, learn from it, and, you'll get more points than if you just took a 0. So now, hopefully a lot of you have started our new book, Drinking Smoke, and you'll understand the title once you read through the introduction and where that came from. And it's actually really interesting because in Nepali, for example, you use the word to drink when you're talking about smoking. Same with the Tibetan language. So you'll learn where that comes from in the introduction. And you'll see that this book is really, really rooted in history. Similar to Yates Storr a little bit, but very much more so. And the author, Dr. Marshall, really considers himself both a anthropologist, but really having to dive into ethnohistory, as many medical anthropologists do, to explain a current health topic, and in this case, tobacco smoking, or smoking tobacco use. So as you make your way through this, you only have to read the introduction for tomorrow, so take some time reading that. You'll see that I posted 2 questions on D2L, and you'll notice that your discussion groups changed. So you're with different people just so you can get different ideas and, to mix that up a little bit. And by Sunday, once you read through the first few chapters, you'll see that I'm only giving you one question to discuss because you have your Global Health Research Project Part 2 due, which is where you're going to write a half a page about the demographic of your choice for your Global Health Campaign project. So moving back to this book, I just want to introduce it a little bit more. So the theoretical point of view that Dr. Marshall takes is really structural. And what he means by that, what I mean by that when I'm trying to explain this to you, is that he's looking less at like individual perception, sort of these cognitive processes that are happening. That was a little bit more of Yates-Storrs style, whereas Marshall is really trying to look at structural things like politics, world trade, economics, and how those things are impacting a health outcome, a negative health outcome, so tobacco use. So you'll see as you read this, keep in mind and try to think about how structural things like global trade and like colonialism and, like, giant world kind of, let's say, economic processes impact one specific health issue in a specific place. So the reason I assign these two books back to back is that they really approach the health issue from a different theoretical viewpoint. And I don't want to give too much away, but I just want you all to think about that, as you start reading. And a new term, or maybe a new term, will be introduced to you right off the bat called syndemic. And so that was a term coined by Meryl Singer, who's a pretty famous medical anthropologist who works a lot in the public health, community health, global health realms. And so you'll explore what that term means. I'll have you write about that for Wednesday. And then think about that term, throughout the case study as you're reading and learning more. So anyway, I'm going to keep it short because I realize I'm already up to 12 minutes here. Hopefully some of you have stuck with me through the video. But as always, let me know if you have questions. If you have questions about grades along the way, if you just want to discuss one of the topics that we're covering further. And, really great job, everyone. And I look forward to seeing how you all interact and respond to the questions about this second case study. So you should expect your case study 1 grades done by the end of the week. And again, if I gave you pointers or suggestions for your Global Health Part 1, make sure that you address them in Global Health Part 2 so that I can, give you more feedback. And then lastly, don't forget about the optional, well, it's not optional. The phone call is not optional. You have to make a phone call to your partner, but if you want to submit a summary of the call and what you learned, you will get some extra credit points, and those will go directly to your discussion grade section, so that part of your final grade. All right, well, wishing you all a wonderful Tuesday, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.